Greetings, everyone. Ronnie Landis here, and welcome to another episode of the official Ronnie Landis podcast show. I'm also the founder of the Holistic Health Mastery certification course. You can find more information about that at holistichealthmastery.com. And I also want to take this moment to share one of the most extraordinary nutritional products / natural supplements that I've ever come across. It's a product from a company called Ojai Energetics, and my friend William Clyden is one of the world's leading experts and visionaries when it comes to all things hemp, and specifically CBD-rich hemp oil. And the product that he came out with recently in the last year or 2 years is a CBD product that is highly deliverable, it's highly absorbable, and it's highly potent. And it's a product that has blown me away. And I swear, at least every day it seems like somebody is messaging me on Facebook, somebody is sending me an email, somebody is cornering me in a health food store, and they're asking me where they can get the most potent and the most effective CBD-based products possible. And for a long time, I couldn't actually answer this question because although there were a lot of CBD products out there, there weren't very many that I could hang my hat on as a recommendation because I just felt like energetically they weren't quite coherent, they weren't quite in resonance. There was something missing. They hadn't quite cracked the code, but Ojai Energetics has cracked the code on the CBD administering within the product that they've created. It is incredible, and I have actually noticed shifts in my cognitive awareness, my neurological function, my ability to modulate my stress response, mood upliftment, anti-inflammatory properties. Everything that CBD is associated with is in this particular product from Ojai Energetics. So I want to put out a plug for them, and you can find this product, and they actually have a number of CBD-based products. They have a topical coconut oil-based product that drives the fat-soluble CBD compound directly into the epidermal layers of the skin, and then they have a sublingual product, which you just take as a dropper. It goes into the mucous membranes of your saliva and goes right into your bloodstream. You can find those products at highpotencycbd.com. Again, highpotencycbd.com. Enjoy that. Now on with the show. So today's episode is very near and dear to my heart. It's with a very good friend of mine, Prescott Love from Los Angeles. And what an incredible message this man has in his heart. And I first met Preston a number of years ago at Air One Natural Foods Market in Los Angeles. And I just kind of bumped into him in happenstance. And a number of synchronicities occurred the moment that him and me started communicating with each other. And I came to find out that he was the formulator of an incredible Ormus-based product that I had tried a couple months before that and had some profound effects happen to me, and some downloads and synchronicities happen because of taking in that product. And then I come to find out later on that he was actually the person. He was kind of the magician behind the scenes who formulated that product. And over the years, I have seen him just evolve, transform, grow into just an amazing brother and an amazing voice for the message of Ormus. For those who aren't aware of what Ormus is, it's code name for orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. What the heck does that mean? Well, Prescott is the perfect person to actually explain what Ormus is, what the practical implications or benefits of it are to the human body and to the neurological system, but also to really connect the dots to its more etherical associations. Ormus has been a type of alchemical extraction that has been revered for centuries, dating back to what you might consider to be the inception of our modern day chemistry, which comes from alchemy, thinking of the Hermetic texts and Paracelsus and many of these famous chemists or alchemists. And it's one of those topics that really requires a certain way of delivering the information, because it can be kind of esoteric in nature, but it's actually more simple than that. It's more physical. It's more grounded than just the spiritual connotations. But my experience has taught me that by taking in Ormus-rich foods and Ormus-rich substances like Prescott's product and doing it in a certain way, it really amplifies meditative states of conscious awareness, like meditation, for example. I've noticed that when I do take this product before I go into a meditation, it really acts as a conductor of sorts. It like tunes up your tuning fork and allows you to be a better conduit for inspired ideas, insights, solutions to certain obstacles you may be trying to figure out in your life. And it increases your synchronicity clock. You'll notice serendipities and synchronicities start to occur more often. We may actually believe, or it may be that synchronicities are happening around us and through us all the time, but we don't have a depth of perspective or perception that allows us to see these synchronicities when they do occur. And substances like Ormus help bring our energy body, if you will, into our physical body and anchor it so we're more aware of the subtleties that are happening in and around us at all times. So that's a little bit of an introduction of what we get into. You are going to enjoy this episode with my good friend and colleague, Prescott Love. Enjoy. Prescott joined the Air Force at age 18 and made missiles and rockets. It was a high security clearance specialty position due to the scoring exceptionally high on his aptitude exam. Then from there, he studied chemistry and biology at the University of Arizona. He was pre-med and wanted to be a psychiatrist. He conducted research projects on Parkinson's disease, Reiki healing, had letters of recommendation from the dean of the medical school and his organic chemistry teacher and doctor he did research with. He then took the psychiatric medications himself to get the download on what it was, and he decided to opt out of the Western medicine for good. He did not know what he wanted to do and began studying Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. He discovered Ormus, began making it. It brought him colorful lucid dreams, wise downloads, incredible synchronistic phenomenon. He began feeling crystal energy and experiencing higher states of consciousness and oneness. And that's when he decided to make it himself, not because he wanted to use it per se, but because he wanted to give modern society the best Ormus the world has ever seen thus far. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure to have you on, and we've been friends for some time now, and I've seen the work that you're doing, which I think is highly exceptional. I love your product, as you know. I've been into the Ormus community for some time now, and this is definitely the best Ormus product that I've ever taken, and we'll dive into that. We'll talk about what Ormus is and why this is such a unique product that really came to you in a series of visions, I assume. But before we jump into that, I really want to kind of dive a little bit more into your backstory from your words, how you got started in this field of research. I guess more so like what was your awakening to your new path, because reading your bio, it's very clear that, hey, like you came from a certain type of background, and a lot of people don't make it out of that, especially to do what you're doing. So let's talk about like where you come from and what brought you to this place.
Well, that's it's a long conversation, and it's pretty much been a lifelong journey for me. Like they say, from the belly of the beast, bringing peace to the streets, right? I was brought into situations that I feel extremely fortunate to have been born into. Most people would consider them unfortunate circumstances. My father was locked away when I was age 2. I then ended up living in battered children's and homeless shelters for the next few years. My mother then, met my stepfather, who was a very angry, abusive man in many ways. And so me as a child was always very, very introspective. Extreme circumstances activate the third eye and open the third eye and give people a larger than self view on the world, a view of what's really going on in the world and what part am I playing here. And so I've pretty much been, looking for the way to help bring people into balance for as long as I can remember. I can remember crawling and having some of these very deep thoughts about the world and healing pain, So, it's pretty clear to me that that's what I'm here for. And I'm happy to say that I have found my modality. Many people will say it's their calling. Like I found Ormus, and it's been changing people's lives. It's even changed my life in many ways. And so, I do believe that I found that balancing substance that I've been looking for about 2 decades. Joining the Air Force, that was an interesting thing. That at 18 years old, I thought that I was, doing some good on the planet by what I considered at the time was getting rid of, darkness. And now I understand that you can't get rid of darkness. You just have to transmute it. You don't blow it up. You know what I mean? So it didn't take long for me to figure that out. And so then I got into medicine. Got really deep into that. I was loving organic chemistry and biochemistry. My easiest days at the University of Arizona. I was having dreams of molecular interactions, and I remember being in the biochem class, which was taught by the dean of the medical school. I never took notes, never studied. I just went to class and listened, and it was like I got it. It was like my language. But if I was in an English class, which is my language, it was just like everything was right over my head.
Mm-hmm.
So the biochem, the chemistry was definitely part of my design. So Ormus came very naturally to me. I was working as a counselor at a residential treatment center for women with eating disorders when I discovered what Ormus was. And I was finding, like you said, I was planning on being a psychiatrist. And after doing my own experimentation with psychiatric medication and getting the download on what they were and what they were not, I decided to actually pick up psychology as another major my senior year, and took 46 units my first semester of senior year, 36 the second, just did the entire psychology curriculum in 1 year. And I ended up, thinking about being a psychologist. But after working in that field, I realized how limited words are, because everything that you say is going to be filtered by the mind of the receiver. And so, it's limited. What you understand is limited to their understanding, so... Mm-hmm. Then I was just like, yeah, I really want to give medicine, because you can say things to people, but it doesn't mean it's going to get in. And I really just want to hand something to somebody and just be like, take this. And, and so I ended up finding that through a shamanic practitioner who was using Ormus. And I came, like you said, from a very Western type of history. And so when she first started telling me about Ormus, I wasn't really interested. She was my roommate at the time, though, so she had plenty of time to try to hammer it in my head. And finally, after a few months, I went online and ordered a bottle. And I just thought, what do I have to lose? It was like, whatever. I just ordered one online and experimented with it. And I took it when it came in, and I didn't really didn't taste anything. It tasted a little bit milky. Didn't really feel anything, didn't really smell like anything. It was just this white substance, and there didn't seem to be much energy in it. Like if you do something, like if you drink a coffee or yerba mate, you feel like there's energy in it because of what the compounds are doing to your neurotransmitters, boosting dopamine levels and whatnot. So the Ormus is not a stimulant, so it's activating but not stimulating. And so many people will try it for the first time and they won't notice anything. I actually charge the Ormus with crystal energy and intention. So my Ormus is very high energy, which separates it from a lot of others. And I did that intentionally because I wanted people to feel something when they did it, So I understand that you can't observe something without changing it. So I just even gaze into the Ormus to plant intentions of love, gratitude, and abundance, and channel energy using something similar to Reiki into the Ormus during my own practice of collecting it. And it works, and people can tell. So basically at that time that the shaman had introduced it to me and I finally tried it, I noticed a subtle shift about 15 minutes after using it, just before leaving the door. And what seemed to me was that time seemed to slow down a little bit. And that's really the only way I can articulate the feeling. But even that doesn't necessarily describe it perfectly. It was just like a shift into presence, and those effects increase over time with daily use. And it got to the point where, before using Ormus, I would be, kind of at a red light, angry, thinking about where I needed to be, kind of anxious, but normal, not like angrier than the normal person. So I thought it was fine and normal. But after using Ormus, it would be like I might be 15 minutes late and sitting at a red light or sitting at a green light even, not moving, and like kind of observing a leaf falling off of a tree and thinking, oh, that's beautiful. And not even thinking about the fact that I'm late, because I started getting all these amazing downloads about the illusion of time and how everything's perfect and that the universe has this divine consciousness that's always shifting things to work out for our highest potential as long as we're coming from integrity. And so in that way, the Ormus started to change my life. And I wasn't even really looking to change my life, and so that's why I got so passionate about sharing it with people, because it became more than just a medicine that would cure people, or I don't even want to use the word cure, but help people with their ADHD and depression and anxiety and imbalances and addictions and things. It became, like a medicine that would actually help to increase people's understanding of the world, and their consciousness, their higher consciousness, to help put them into their higher self. And that was something that I didn't even really ever think about when I was looking at medicine and stuff. So this was like a whole new world that opened up to me that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and for everyone listening that are wondering, what is Ormus? Ormus stands for orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements, and what we kind of understand as Ormus was discovered by a man named David Hudson in the late 70s and 80s, who basically poured millions of dollars into trying to figure out what this substance was that wasn't depicted on the traditional periodic table of the elements, and started doing experiments with plants like aloe vera, which we now know is highly rich in different species of aloe vera, highly rich in these Ormus elements. And that's kind of how I got tuned into it. But one thing I want to touch on that you're sharing is, it reminds me of when you and me first connected, really. I think I was doing a lecture at Light Food Organics. And I remember you came up to me afterwards, because I guess I was talking about like the spiritual revelations and transformation that occurred when I started doing like 64 ounces of green juice and got colonics and doing raw foods and superfoods. And I remember you came up to me and you're like, everything you're saying pretty much happened to me, but it didn't happen when I did like raw food. It happened when I did Ormus. And I think there's something to be said about when the time is right for you to walk through the door. It might not look like it looks like for somebody else, but when that thing comes to you, then be ready, because it's going to awaken you.
Yeah. And here's what happened to me with the Ormus. Wow. I love talking about this. Such beautiful memories. So, okay, before doing the Ormus, I was doing, I was eating meat that came from, quote unquote happy animal farms and whatnot. I was doing my research and ordering meat specifically from farms that treated their animals right and whatnot. But I I wasn't thinking too much about raw foods. And when I first started doing Ormus, one of the first things that happened to me was a natural, non-intentional fast, where I was just pushed into this place of juice fasting. I didn't eat for like 15 days and had more energy than I'd ever had in my life, and more clarity, and shed so much water weight, and which was actually coming from like over acidification that I had in my cells. So my body was becoming alkaline. I was shedding all this water weight, and I was having so much energy, and I wasn't even eating. And so basically what was happening was that I was getting Ormus into my body, and then my cells were saying, this stuff is good. Where can I get more of this? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's when I started getting into raw foods and stuff, because the Ormus is contained within the seeds and the skins of fruits and vegetables. And here's the thing, too. Ormus is also in meat, but it's in the organs and the glands of the meat. And most people don't do that. They just eat the muscle, which is, I mean, the organs and the glands are the reason that animals are feeding things. Like even in nature, when an animal kills another animal, it goes in for the organs and leaves the carcass, you know, but people, they see meat as like a way to make money and stuff. So they're just trying to capitalize on it in any way they can. And they're wasting the organs and the glands, which is just like, it's missing the mark, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are a lot of places to find Ormus: the organs, the glands, the skins, and the seeds. But ultimately, in trace amounts, it's in everything, even in the air, just in such small amounts that it's almost not worth talking about, you know, but in concentrated amounts, it's in the organs, glands, and skins, and seeds. So I started reaching for that stuff once I started using the Ormus, and I got so into it that I was looking for all sorts of ways to collect Ormus and where I can get it from and everything. I was having a lot of fun with it.
And so let's talk about your product, because there's a lot of Ormus products out there. I came to find years ago that many of these quote-unquote Ormus products are like possibly 90 or 99% like silica or silicates and carbon, and aren't actually genuine Ormus products. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I use the Dead Sea as a source, which is about 70% monatomic gold. The Ormus elements in the Dead Sea are about 70% monatomic gold. And the reason why I do that is that it's a very ancient source. And for me, it's all about, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Jesus Christ and the Essenes used the Dead Sea to collect Ormus. King Solomon used the Dead Sea to collect Ormus. Right. The ancient Egyptians used the Dead Sea. And I mean, I love that we can still do that. It's like been going on for thousands of years, and we can still do it today. Intuitively, I'm just very drawn to it. I feel that it has a very healing frequency to it, and it's very sacred. So, yeah, like you said, a lot of Ormus is not really Ormus, and there are ways of washing Ormus and concentrating it that are very important. For example, Moon Juice sells my Ormus now, Moon Juice in Venice, and they used to sell another company's Ormus, and I went in there and I tried the Ormus they were selling, and it wasn't Ormus, but it was like salt water, and I mean, there's a lot of salt in it. But when you take my Ormus, you don't taste any salt. And I had gone through different processes of purification and kind of mastering my purification process, which will always be happening for as long as I'm making it. But it's at a really great place, and it went through a phase where I had completely gotten rid of the sodium and the kind of salty flavor just to purify it more and concentrate it more once collecting the Ormus. But I also now, it even had like kind of a subtle hint of something that was like sea-ish, where like you didn't taste salty, but you could tell that it came from something that like fish also came from, Mm-hmm. And now it's so pure. It's almost just like air. It's a very thick white substance that basically tastes like water or air. And then I also have the Egyptian blue lotus and the rose. But yeah, so it takes me about 2 to 3 months to purify the Ormus. I'm making it at a really awesome place now that I'm really happy to be part of, Revolution in Venice, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? So I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually using Revolution's kitchen under the full moon and making it there. It's a very high vibe environment, commercial, certified, vegan, organic. And so I collect it under the full moon, but then the purification, the washing, is about a 2-month process for me. I do collect it in a different way so that when it comes out, it's really, really concentrated, which has a lot to do with the high energy, because Ormus kind of comes out as an explosion, and the more concentrated it is, the more explosive it is. And ultimately, anybody that it just comes down to time and patience of the wash cycles. And I run a lot of wash cycles through it to continue to filter it afterward. So I get it down to a white, cream that could easily be converted into a powder, but I don't want to get rid of the water because it's programmed with the crystals and the intention, and it's a great delivery mechanism. So I keep that, and then once it's done, I dilute it a little bit. I put it in Myron Glass, which is as protective against light frequency as a metal, but there's no metal leaching out. It's a very high quality glass, because light will actually reduce the shelf life of the Ormus. It'll drop it into a lower vibrational state. So I immediately put it into the Myron Glass to protect it against light and energy vibration. And then it can be shelved and handled. It's totally safe.
Yeah, you know what I love about the Myron Glass movement too is that the science behind it is really amazing. Fritz Albert Popp, the famous biophysicist and scientist of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, who really discovered that within each cell of any living organism, it basically respires on biophotons, or light, biological light that we take in from, let's just say, the sun. And the way that Myron Glass is designed is that it only lets through exactly 380 nanometers of photon rays, which are exactly the frequency that scrambles mutated cells.
Right, exactly. And the first Ormus I tried came to me in a plastic bottle.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? And so, I took the Ormus, and this is one of the biggest Ormus providers in the world. So this is one of the reasons I got into it, because I was in the Air Force making missiles and rockets. I went to University of Arizona and studied chemistry and psychology and biology, and I'm meticulous. Like when I do something, I do it right. And I'm not going to put gold in a plastic bottle. That's poverty consciousness. You're basically programming the Ormus with poverty consciousness when you do something like that. I programmed the Ormus for it to bring love, gratitude, and abundance to everybody who uses it. Of course, when I get Ormus in a plastic bottle, I'm going to take it, and its energy is going to be low, because like you said, the photons of the light are going to drop it down into a lower vibrational state, and the Myron Glass is very protective.
Yeah, I really appreciate that meticulousness and that attention to detail, which can be very difficult in a world that is essentially drowning in information and starving for wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what your kind of core philosophy really is about, is that you're trying to deliver a state of wisdom to people. And that's what I find with the Ormus. People I've talked to about it that have tried your Ormus, they really feel they have an amplified tuning fork, and they are more of a conduit or a receiver for inspired insights. Yeah,
that reminds me of one of my first testimonials. Was a man who started taking the Ormus when, so I used to live in West Hollywood, and I went to Air One a lot. And there was a guy that worked at Air One named Alex Puz. I don't know if you know him. He worked behind the tonic bar at Air One.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alex Puz. So I was, this was during the time that I was working at the treatment center, and I was making Ormus for fun. And I would go into Air One and get a tonic and sit at the bar. And somehow Alex heard that I was making Ormus, and he asked me if he could have some. So I said, sure. And I gave him the Ormus, and he was like, whoa, like there's energy in this. This is like really high vibration Ormus. You should be giving this to people. I was like, okay, cool. He started sharing it with people behind the bar. And I gave it to him in this blue bottle that was unmarked. It had no label, nothing on it. And people would walk up to the bar, like celebrities and, like really powerful people and very, very super health conscious people walking up to the bar. And they're like, oh, I have this going on, trouble sleeping, or, I get this anxiety in my work. It's really stressful. And he's like, here, this is what you need, some Ormus. And he would take this bottle of Ormus that I gave him as a gift out of his apron and give them across the counter this Ormus that came from outside of Air One. And so people started calling me asking for bottles. So I put a label that said Ormus and had my phone number on the bottle, and I would go over to Air One and give it to people and then walk back to my place. And that was going on for a while, which was really fun and really exciting. And then finally Air One was just like, this can't be happening here, But during this phase, there was a man who started using the Ormus, and he had tried pretty much every psychiatric medication. He had tried all sorts of shamanic ceremonial practices and microdosing on different plant medicines and things, and nothing was working for him. He was 40 years old. He lived with his parents, had extreme anxiety, was working in real estate for years, and had never even come close to closing a deal. And he had nothing to lose, kind of like how I felt when I tried the Ormus. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll try some of this stuff. And called me, and he got a bottle, and he came back in 2 weeks, and he said, I feel amazing. I want to buy 2 more bottles. And the bottle was supposed to last about 2 months at that time. I was selling much bigger bottles. It was not as concentrated as it is now. And I said, wow, that went really fast. And he goes, yeah, I feel amazing. My anxiety's gone. So I said, okay. So I gave him another 2 bottles, and then he came back in about 2 weeks, and both of those bottles were gone. And he said he wanted 2 more bottles. I was like, you went through 2 bottles in 2 weeks? And he said, you shouldn't be selling this to the public. The world's not ready for this. He said, I feel amazing. I can feel people's energy. I can connect with people. He's like, I feel powerful. And so I considered what he said, and I thought, that's great. That's the natural state of being. You're balanced, and you're activated, and you're open and alert. This is exactly why I'm giving it to the public. And about 3 months after that, he closed his first deal. He sold a $20 million house. He got a $200,000 commission, moved out of his parents' place, bought a house. He started renting out an Airbnb, and got his dream car. It totally changed his life. And this was within my first couple months of making Ormus. So this was like this immediate feedback of that I was doing the right thing. And he actually bought the rest of the Ormus that I had. Just bought it all. It was like 3.5 gallons that he purchased from me at that time, which was really funny because I had taken out this loan to start the business. And what I gave him my wholesale price when he bought the rest of it. And it was exactly to the dollar amount what I needed to repay that loan.
Wow.
And I repaid it within like a week before going late. So it was perfect and very synchronistic, which is another thing that the Ormus does, is it just puts you in line with synchronistic phenomenon. One of my first experiences before I even decided to start sharing it with people was I was working at the treatment center. I was, you would consider me a pretty successful free guy in America. I was 28 years old. I had a job. And I had a car and a place to live. I lived in West Hollywood. And so you think, yeah, freedom, right? This is freedom. But I was driving home one day and I was not feeling free. I was, for some reason, kind of for the first time in my life, even just like noticing consciously the feeling of not being free. And so I started questioning freedom and what it was. And I asked this question out loud. I said, what is freedom? Just driving, talking to myself. I'm like, what is freedom? And when I said that, a red convertible BMW drove by me, and written on the side in big black letters was the word freedom. And so I was like, okay, I'm communicating with the universe right now. This is not, a lot of things like that were happening to me, but this was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, where I was like, all right, there's something to this Ormus, and there's something to this universe, and there's some consciousness out here that I've been unaware of my whole life, So that's when I really started diving deeper into the Ormus, and yeah, that's, there's been a lot of, now that's just a regular state of being for me, where it's like that constantly. I'm surprised if stuff like that isn't happening every day,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can completely relate to that experience of being in the hyper synchronistic flow, or the holy flow of hyper synchronicity. Mm-hmm. And you start to notice your perception of time changes. You notice things. You actually can start to see, as you fine tune this, you start to see a timeline awaken like in front of you. Instead, when you're looking back on your life in retrospect, you see the movie reel lead up to where you are. But now you start to see it actually kind of being rolled out in front of you, and you can kind of see, okay, if I take this path, or I do these habits, let's say like we want to change our habits. Well, if I keep doing certain habits, it's going to lead me towards this timeline in 5 to 10 years, and I'm going to be this kind of person. Or if I do this path and I change certain habits, this is the trajectory I'm looking at. And that's kind of what I'm getting from this too, is that your perception of yourself and that self-awareness, and also being able to project probabilities of your destiny, let's say, get easier, and now you can make better decisions because you're not naively going through life. You can actually see the probabilities unfold in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what you're describing is clairvoyance.
Yes.
You know, which is one of the properties of opening the third eye. And I remember the first time I had of a sober clairvoyant experience, again, induced by the Ormus. I was in my bedroom, sitting on my bed. I had woken up, gone for my morning run, came home, and I was, making the Ormus and stuff. And I was in this place I was kind of in between, changing my life. And there was all these things I wanted to do, but I didn't know where to start. And something happened where I sat on my bed to think, what should I do? Something happened where I saw myself all over my bedroom doing different things, and each thing in line with a certain timeline that was a certain potential for an existence and where it would lead me. And I saw them all as if I was watching like 6 movies at once. You know what I mean? And then I was like, okay, I'm choosing this one. And I made a choice to go do something that I'd seen it all unfold. Yeah. Yeah,
that's beautiful. And that's kind of like, that's the magic of life, right? Like everybody is seeking transcendent experiences. They're seeking a natural high, essentially, even though we haven't been educated on these metaphysical capabilities. So we defer that to the substance that elicits that neurotransmission. The brain chemicals start dancing and our hormones dance, and then that gives us some sort of perceptual experience that's very transitory, obviously. But the Ormus in the experience that we're kind of talking about is ultimately we're tapping into a flow state, right?
Right. Balancing the left and right hemispheres of the brain, inducing the theta and delta brain states. That's what psychologists call the flow.
Right. Or coherence.
Right. Some people call it the zone. Right.
Like as an athlete, like that was kind of, that became the whole deal for me, because I realized as a competitive martial artist who competed at the national level and internationally, where, it's like very high caliber, or even basketball, I would notice myself at times go into these zones where I seemed like I pretty much could do anything I wanted at free will. But then I started to realize, like, wow, okay, that doesn't seem to be like, I can't activate that of my own volition. Like something happens unannounced to me, and I was like, how do I tap that? What's the formula to that? How can I just activate that at any given moment? And kind of sounds like this is one of those possible tools.
It really is. It really truly is. I like to call Ormus liquid yoga, because the feeling that it gives you is similar to how you feel after a yoga class or breath work or meditation. It's the theta delta brain state, and it's a balanced state of being, where the way that what studies show the Ormus does to the brain is that we have an imbalance in the masculine, the feminine, the artistic, the scientific, the left side, the right side of the brain. One is more active than the other. So what's happening when people use the Ormus is that the more prominent side reduces in activity to meet the less prominent side, and then they both increase together past the point of activity that even the more prominent side was at originally. So it's increasing brain capacity and IQ over time. So helping people with memory, focus, all sorts of things. And so basically it's not something that I tell people here, just take this and you're going to get like really smart or whatever. I don't recommend that, because there is a very synchronistic quality to the Ormus, where your thoughts, which are things, and what you focus on and what you're seeing is a reality, and you're drawing that closer to you. You still have to be very conscious and intentional with your thoughts, and only more so when you use the Ormus. So I don't say, here, just take this and you're fine. You know, I say take it before you meditate, preferably, because my personal experience, what started happening is I was becoming accident prone when I was first taking the Ormus because I wasn't meditating. But I liked that I was becoming accident prone because things were happening to me, accidents that never happened. And I was like, wow, okay, the Ormus is doing something. So I sat with it and I meditated. But the amazing thing was that when I started meditating, I would see my crown chakra activate. I would see this violet cloud. I would focus on it, and then I would go through these violet tunnels, and then I would get all these dead. And so meditation, and this is fast. This is within like 3 minutes of sitting there, you know. And prior to the Ormus, if I was meditating, I could do it for like half an hour, and I was still thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that, all these things I had to take care of, and was never really tapping into the flow state, you know. But with the Ormus, I was being put in a constant flow state, so I could just sit there, and I was already in the flow state, and then I could really tap into the deep states of meditation with that, you know. So basically, once I started meditating, all of the accidents turned into really great, you know, like synchronistic gifts. Like, wow, this is exactly what I needed to happen. I met the person I needed to meet, or just something would come in. It generally involved people. Me being a business owner and operating a business single-handedly, a lot of the synchronistic phenomenon that I was experiencing was I'd wake up in the morning and be like, man, I really need this. I need somebody to come help me with this today. And somebody would send me an email or call me and be like, hey, do you need help with this? And I'm like, really? Yeah, I kind of do, you know? And so basically what's happening is that a person is like a beacon, you know, we're like an antenna, and we give off this wavelength. And so the Ormus has superconductive properties, and so it's strengthening the magnitude of the wavelengths you're putting out, so they go out much further with more power. And so what you're thinking is coming back to you way faster. And so that's how using Ormus, when it's good Ormus, can catalyze manifestations. Mm-hmm. And I experienced a lot of that with the Ormus I was making. And now it's like instant karma, you know, like in a state of instant karma. And that's how, like, this Ormus, it's changing my life. It's every day it's making me a better person, you know?
That's a really great point. I like the term instant karma because a lot of times, depending on if somebody subscribes to that or not, however you interpret that, everything has a cause and effect, right? So things that we have done or participated in years ago, sometimes the boomerang effect can take years to come back around. And I like the idea of instant karma because you can get through, you can learn your lessons quicker. And if you're on a growth path and you're really clear, like, okay, I want to express more clairvoyant qualities and I'm really on my mission, then you would like to get the feedback immediately so you don't have to be distracted later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And from the moment I started taking Ormus to where I'm at now, things in my life, which normally I wouldn't really see a pattern, I started seeing patterns that would be like, you know, the same thing would happen in like a 3 or 4 month period of time, which now the pattern is like a 1 to 2 day period of time that something's happening over and over again. The universe is just talking to me nonstop. You know, I mean, I say the universe is talking to me nonstop, and a lot of people say, oh, you are the universe, but I really understand. It's like, I am the universe, you know, like if I look into the mirror and say the words, you're beautiful, I'm going to see my eyes change right before my eyes, you know? And when you start to catalyze your energy, you have that experience with the entire world around you, you know, where now it's like, I'm good to people just to be good so I can be good. You know what I mean?
Well, what a concept.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, just to be good because it feels good to be good. That's all. I'm good. And when you're good, you know, good things happen to you, but that doesn't even matter. That's just a byproduct of being good. I mean, of course, if you're good things are going to happen to you. But yeah, so the universe, you know, the Ormus, it can turn the universe into kind of a mirror where it always is. It's just not so obvious, you know?
But is the mirror cloudy or not?
You know, it's funny you say that. I had this really interesting download the other day, and it was funny you say, is the mirror cloudy? Because I was driving down the street, and I was thinking about how beautiful the world looked driving down Lincoln Boulevard in Venice, which I didn't always think looked beautiful, but I just think things are beautiful these days. So I was like, yeah, the world looks beautiful, and then that followed up with, what were the specific words? It was, the world is always beautiful. The question is whether or not your windshield is clean.
Right.
Because if your windshield is dirty, the world's not looking so beautiful. But when it's clean, suddenly the world looks a lot prettier. So yeah, it's like that. Is the mirror cloudy?
Yeah, that's
so the
really...
Ormus will help decloud the mirror, help you clean the mirror.
Right, that's essentially the message that I'm getting. I was talking to a friend a day or two ago, and I was talking about this concept that continues to arise. Like, my brain is literally changing. I can feel the organ physically changing, but I see how things are holographically appearing in front of me, and it's almost like I'm before, if you can imagine, we're in such a willpower kind of like masculine go kind of archetype. So we're putting the puzzle pieces where we think they need to go. But now I go into a meditation and then I watch the puzzle pieces being placed in front of me. And one puzzle piece, for example, we can call that a paradigm or a thought, a belief, and I see that, but then I see another puzzle piece attached to it, and then now I'm witnessing the unfoldment of a bigger picture, right? So that's kind of how I relate to that, is like my windshield might have been cloudy per se, simply because I was so focused on one puzzle piece, but then now that I backed up a little bit, now I can see a bigger picture. I can see more opportunities. I can see how these quote-unquote mistakes, these accidents, were actually necessary prerequisites for the formation of a bigger vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody said once that when you're standing too close to the tree, you can't see the forest. And it's kind of like, when somebody's slapping you in the face and it doesn't hurt that much, you stand there and they're slapping you and it doesn't hurt that much and they're slapping you. But when suddenly it hurts because it's so strong, you move and you respond and you make sure it never happens again. Right. And that's what it's like when the magnitude of what you put out is so great, because they're coming in much stronger. Mm-hmm. You're putting out a greater magnitude, so what's comes in at a greater magnitude, like the guy that sold the $20 million house,
Right. Okay. Let me touch on that concept for a minute, because this is, as an entrepreneur and just a very goal-oriented person who's working with quote-unquote universal principles opposed to man-made principles, I'm starting to, I just want to actually pose some form of a question here for you. Now, in that instance, my interpretation is that man obviously had all the capacities and capabilities to sell that house, but there was something interrupting that current of flow, if you will, from aligning to that. But what you said is once he started taking the Ormus, it's almost like that whatever was inhibiting that flow currency probably opened up. Is that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So we have blind sides in our consciousness. The blind sides, they're huge. Blind spots, they're like the subconscious. Right. So, unfortunately, most people are completely living in their subconscious. They're totally operating, and the finger's always pointing outward. And so what happens is when you start to fire up your neurotransmitters in a natural way, just from giving yourself a natural form of life force, the Ormus elements, they come from nature, so it's not like you're using a drug that's firing up your neurotransmitters, and it's not like you're taking a reuptake inhibitor that's just blocking your neurotransmitters your receptors so that more neurotransmitters are floating around. You're taking something that allows you to naturally make more neurotransmitters, Mm-hmm. You're not taking neurotransmitters and you're not taking reuptake inhibitors. You're just feeding yourself with the energy that allows you to make more. So basically what's happening is that when his brain starts firing up, and he's increasing his brain capacity and his IQ, the blind spots are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So he's seeing his thoughts, and he's seeing those things that are blocking him from being what he wants to be. He's seeing his fearful thoughts. And when you see it, you're like, that's silly. There's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah. It's like when I was a child, I remember I used to be afraid of the dark. And I remember the day that I was no longer afraid of the dark, because what always happened to me was when I'd wake up in the middle of the night and hear a sound, I'd put the blanket over my face. And then one day I decided, I was like, wait, if there's something really in my room, I want to see what it is. So I pulled the blanket under my face, and then there was nothing there. I was like, what the hell was I afraid of? And that's what life is like. You know, we have this subconscious with all these fearful thoughts, and they're looming around saying, you can't do this because of that, or like this will happen, or look what happened to this guy, you know, this lady, and or you're like, your loved one will stop talking to you if you're super successful or whatever, you know. And so, but you don't see them, and they're just operating you. And so when you see them, you're like, well, I can respond. That's silly, you know. And that's what happened to this gentleman. So he took a lot, and he really quickly turned his life around just by being able to see his subconscious and the things that were holding him back. And he wanted it, you know. He knew what he wanted. He wanted to be successful. He wanted to get out of his parents' house, and he was in real estate for 4 years and wanted to be a successful real estate agent, and that's what he wanted. God bless his soul, you know. Everybody deserves to have what they want as long as they're not hurting anybody. And so him being a 40-year-old man is, you know, different than a lot of other people. When you're 25 or 30, the goal isn't to have what you want. The goal then is, for most people who are using the Ormus, just to know what they want, first and foremost.
Right.
You know? So he started off, you know, on being, just with his age and life experience, on a little bit of a further path than most of the people who even start using the Ormus in the first place.
That's so beautiful. It reminds me of this thought I was meditating on earlier today, the concept of a miracle. And so many times we interpret a miracle as a projection of something happening to us or for us to fix something. Like, oh, I just got the money I needed. What a miracle. And it's like, well, let's examine that for a second, because I'm really pretty sure a miracle is not in the acquisition of something, but the actual miracle is the shift somebody makes consciously in making a decision to shift something inside of them. Maybe it's to walk in more oneness with God, or whatever your interpretation is. Like, to me, the very act of somebody deliberately shifting in that direction is actually the miracle. And anything else that happens is a natural phenomenon that is an expression of the miracle.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to those, you know, the people who win the lottery and then they end up worse off after winning the lottery than before, because winning the lottery is not a miracle.
Right. No.
You know, it's what's going on within you that is what causes the miracle, you know? So it's not to be distracted by what's going on externally.
Yeah, and this is, you know, it's beautiful. Again, it takes me back to our original conversation after that lecture, is that, you know, what I was wanting to convey to people, and even more so now, is that my passion for living foods and the whole plethora of what I talk about is not in the actual details of those things, but it's in the painting of a vision that was made available to me when I made a shift to change my lifestyle habits and my diet, and I walked that path. Like, that's when the miracle started to occur. And it just so happened that my physical vessel was being cleaned out to make me a better conduit. But that's why I think that gift was, or that, you know, the voice to speak this message was given to me, and the passion I have with it, because essentially, I'm not really trying to sell somebody a diet. Like, that's of no interest to me. I'm trying to inspire somebody to take action steps that are going to catalyze a spiritual insight for them.
Right, exactly. And I think that's why we're connecting, you know, on the Ormus. I can say comfortably that, you know, it's not a good idea to ever say guarantee. You know, I don't use that word, but I can say comfortably that if you start taking the Ormus and you say clearly to yourself, this is what I want to experience, that will happen. If you say, it doesn't even have to be right. There is no right or wrong. It's just, all we're doing is placing orders within every moment of every second. You start taking the Ormus and you say, or write, this is what I want. Give it some time. It might even be a month or 2 months. But it might not be that long. Just give it some time, and for sure, without a doubt, it will actually happen.
So this reminds me of the great quote, God's delays are not God's denials, and everything manifests in its own time.
Yeah, absolutely. True. And sometimes the time period, time is an important process of alchemy. And actually pain is too, because pain is the fire. People don't realize that. They try to avoid pain. And that's them. They're avoiding the magic, because essentially the only difference between alchemy and chemistry is the magic. And so when you allow yourself to feel pain, you're increasing the strength of your fire. And that's the fire that's catalyzing the reaction necessary to create what you want to create. It's just pain. It's not misery. Misery is the avoidance of pain, So basically you have time and you have pain. And so it's important, let yourself desire, and so it's desiring is not the root to misery. It's attachment that's the root to misery. So, we can get that straight. So let yourself desire, and then give yourself some time, because over time the fire grows stronger. And this is an important part of the reaction. So that's what's going to bring it in, or like, cook up the dish, if you will. Essentially it's the desire, because that's the energy that when you see the picture and then you have the fire behind it, that's what pulls it in,
This is so good. So the fire is essentially the passion and all your, it's the fire. It's that fiery energy that you use to mold yourself, or to mold an idea at the right point, when that flame has reached its like, I guess its impetus or its magnum opus.
Yeah.
And then it.
Yeah, you can't turn an iron into a sword without fire. Right. And you can't turn yourself into a beautiful work of art without pain.
Right.
So anyway, I don't even know how we got on the topic of that, but this is important, because when you're using the Ormus and you're catalyzing your rate of manifestation, it's important that people understand what manifestation and what alchemy is, so they kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely. No, this is brilliant. I mean, this is what this podcast is all about. This is why it's an unconventional and journey-based podcast. And I think that's why so many people have gravitated towards it and really appreciate it, because we're taking untraveled territory, which is all universal. Like, each person that comes on here is really bringing in their own wisdom teachings. Obviously, we talk about the health aspects, or like we're talking about Ormus, but what I love about this conversation is that it's spawning out into these universal principles that everybody is wanting to live their life by in some way. And when we understand that there's certain lifestyle tools that are really powerful and that are, authentically made and high quality and can help us become better tuning forks, I think that's what everyone's really going after in the health quest, is to actually live their dreams and become.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel, very fortunate to be part of this process.
Yeah, right on. It's an honor. And with everything we've talked about, do you have any concluding thoughts for us?
Concluding thoughts. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, nothing happens to you. Everything happens for you. So just keep that in mind. Use the Ormus. Meditate on what you want to experience. As it opens your third eye, it tends to bring colorful, lucid dreaming. You tend to be more lucid in your waking state, and you can use this imagery to, see what you want for yourself. And let the painful experiences be a blessing, because they really are a blessing. And here's why. The reason they're a blessing is because it is the painful experiences that are bringing you the experiences that you want to experience. So, when something tough happens, just breathe it in and let it be tough. Don't sit in denial over the fact that you're not where you want to be. Let yourself know, this isn't what I want. This is not what I want to be a pattern, or this isn't what I want to experience. And be a positive impact on the world around you. So with that being said, I want to let you know, you introduced me as Prescott. My birth name is Prescott Mason Love. On the last full moon, actually, so just about a week ago, I decided to come up with a new, fun, and creative name, which I don't even think that I don't think I told you this, but you might have noticed this switch on Facebook, Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I came up with this fun name that I love, Archer Adam Aniyata. And Aniyata is an ancient Hebrew word that means I am you. The way that I spell Adam is Atom, because the entire universe is contained within the atom. And when you scroll back and look at the universe, you realize that it really just looks like an atom. So it's all just one atom within an atom. Adam was also, not coincidentally, the first man to walk the face of the earth, according to some religions and philosophies. So Archer, is a name I chose because, it has been said that, the true meaning of sin is to miss the mark. And, if the mark is a bullseye, then what we're really aiming at within every moment of every second is love. And sometimes we miss, and sometimes we hit anger instead, or jealousy instead or something. But, like an archer, just step back, recalibrate, re-aim, and release, So I go by Archer Adam Aniata now, and you can find me with that on Facebook. It's Now Alchemy on Instagram. My website is nowalchemy.com, and I have some really amazing discounts on the website. And for everybody who's hearing this podcast right now and wants to go on the website and order a bottle, if you enter the coupon Ronnie, RONNIE, you'll get an additional 10% off of any discount or any price that's already on the website.
Fantastic. Oh, wow. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. It's been my pleasure, truly.
Wonderful. And for all of you listening, thank you, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the official Ronnie Landis podcast show. It's been my pleasure and my honor, and thank you for joining our special guest. And check out his work. Amazing stuff. If this is your first introduction into Ormus, there you go. You got the download. Now it's time to take action. Start playing with it. See how it could positively influence your life and the goals that you want to create. And with that said, we will catch you on the next episode. Aloha.
Aloha. Peace, brother. Peace, everybody. Thank you for listening. Love you.